Welcome back guys to this video. Today we're going to do a TryHackMe video. So I was navigating through the available tracks in TryHackMe and I've discovered that there was an update on one of the rooms. Basically it is Active Directory Basics. So previously I completed this track, but yesterday I found that there was an update to this room and I have to start over one more time. So I navigated to the room and I found completely new and different tasks. So what we're going to do, we're going to resolve or redo this room and provide you guys with the intro to Active Directory. So after we switch on the machine, we click on Show Split View. This will bring us to the machine itself. We open the machine here and we click on OK, reconnect. Okay, so basically this is the desktop connection error. Alright, so today we're going to give an introduction on Active Directory. So basically guys, Active Directory is installed normally on Windows Server, so it doesn't work on normal versions of Windows. You have to install it on Windows Server, and the Windows Server has to be part of a domain. So basically you choose a workstation like this one and you dedicate that workstation as a domain controller. The domain controller is the Windows Server workstation that acts as a server and contains the Active Directory installation. So basically the Active Directory is a centralized place to manage users, computers, and other objects in your organization. So instead of you managing every machine separately or individually, you're going just to install Active Directory and manage all the users and computers joined under the domain. So as you can see here, when you open Active Directory users and computers, we see here the domain name that we chose when we first installed Active Directory. So when you first install Active Directory, it's going to ask you what is the domain name. And the domain name doesn't have to be a website. It can be the domain name of your site, of course, but if you are completely free to choose whatever domain you want. And as you can see here guys, we have different sections under this domain name. So namely, as you can see, we call these organizational units. So for example, we have THM. THM is an organizational unit under which it has departments, sub-organizational units, as you can see here: IT, management, marketing, research and development, and then we have sales. So basically these organizational units contains either users or computers. So it's a way of managing or kind of grouping users or computers together to be able to assign policies. So basically here Active Directory is after you assign or after you define the hierarchical structure of your organization, then you're going to apply policies. So policies are applied through something called the group policy editor. So what's the point of organizational unit? The point, again, one more time, is to group users or machines or computers and apply or assign policies to them. So let's take a look here. So you have Bulletin here. Bulletin contains default groups available to any Windows host. So these are different groups found by default in any operating system that has Active Directory installed. Of course, it has to be Windows Server. Now we have computers. Computer contains all of the computers that have joined the domain name thm.local. So if you don't know what does mean by saying join a domain, so basically every computer has either to be part of a worker group or a domain name. How do you find that out? So basically you go to, I'm gonna do it on my PC. So right click here, show more options, properties, And here I'm going to be able to see from the computer properties, I go to, this is Windows 11. It's kind of bugs me to see this interface. Alright, so as you can see here, domain or work group. We click on advanced system settings, computer name, and here as you can see the computer is part of a work group. So here instead of work group, it has to be, for example, thm.local. So I change it. In this link, this link here, you will, it's a shortcut actually, to see if the computer is part of a domain or work group. And here I can click on domain, right? And I put in the domain. Once I do that, my computer will show up here in the computers section. Domain controllers. It's also an organizational unit that contains the domain controllers. Domain controllers, again, they are computers that act as servers. They contain Windows Server installation and an installation of Active Directory. So this one is a domain controller. And by the way, domain controllers are the first and the main target in any attack that targets an organizational network, because the domain controller contains, or because it authenticates all the users and it contains the hashes for all the users. So if you hack the domain controller, you'll be able to generate, or not generate, you'll be able to extract or harvest the hashes of all the users that are joined in the domain, to the domain. Managed service accounts. So managed service accounts is an organizational unit that holds the accounts used by services in your Windows domain. So for example, if you have MySQL server, if you have IIS server, other kinds of server, these servers need, or they are assigned users. These users, they are called service accounts. They manage the services of these tools. And then we have this organizational unit. We have, as you can see, IT, management. Under management, we have 1 user. Under IT, we have 3, marketing, research, sales. So if you right click on an organizational unit, we go to properties and we check out the properties of this organizational unit. As you can see, it's managed by, you can change here the name of the person who is managing the organizational unit. This is COM plus. Same here. If you want to create a new organizational unit, you have to decide whether it is it is a main unit or it is a sub unit. So this one is a main unit, right? Now if you want to create an organizational unit for an office or a branch that's part of the company, but it is residing in a different province or a different country, you may have to choose a kind of an independent organization unit, right? Not a sub-organization unit. So here you can right click on the domain and choose new, and from here you click on new organizational unit. If you want the OU to be part of another OU, you can right click on the main OU and select new, and then new organizational unit. Likewise, under the OU you can create computers, groups, users, printers, shared folders, or shared resources. So that's basically about the organizational units. Now you see here we have computers, and we said that computers are computers that whose operating systems joined the main domain. Let's see questions we have to answer. Windows domains. In a Windows domain controller, credentials are stored in a centralized repository called Active Directory. The server in charge of running Active Directory services is called domain controller. We explained that. Which group normally administers all computers and resources in a domain? So this comes to your understanding of the groups. So basically here in the groups we have administrators, account operators, backup operators. Now the one responsible for managing or administering the computers and resources is called domain admins. So this group, if you add any user to this group, that user will be able to manage computers and resources. They will become an administrator. What would be the name of the machine account associated with a machine named Tom PC? So the answer here, as you can see, it's the machine name followed by a $sign, because every machine has an account name, and the account name of the machine is composed of the machine name followed by the $sign. Suppose our company creates a new department for quality assurance. What type of containers should we use to group all quality assurance users so that policies can be applied consistently to them? It's an OU. We said that the OU can be used to group users or your computers according to your organizational structure, so that you apply the policies or the computer policies effectively without the need to individually assigning them. Okay. Here do we have questions. What is the flag found on Sophie's desktop? The process of granting privileges. Alright, so here we come to another part, which is managing the users on the organization. So let's go back. So we explained about the OUs and other things. So now let's say there is another IT personnel who works in IT support, and they need some privileges to be able to reset user passwords or manage some aspects of the users and computers. So instead of giving them complete administration over everything, you will want to delegate. So delegation is a method where you give some privileges to users who need to administer some aspects of the Active Directory, such as IT support. So IT support, they are not necessarily admins, right? So basically you don't want to grant them full privileges on the Active Directory. So what you want to do, you want to assign them a delegation. So here you can click on delegate control, and there is a wizard. Next, and from here you add the users or groups to which or to whom you want to delegate the privileges. So add, and from here, as you can see, we select the user. So in the case here, we're required to assign the privileges to a user named Philip. So we say Philip, check names. Okay. In that scenario, we want Philip to be able to reset user passwords. So we click on reset user passwords. Of course, you can select or add more privileges to be delegated to Philip. Next, finish. Alright, now what we're going to do, we're going to log in as Philip and check if we are able to reset users' passwords. So for that purpose, I'm going to start the attacker machine because I want to log in using RDP. So what we're going to do here, guys, once we log in as Philip, we will try to go to this THM or this organizational unit and reset one of the users' passwords. So basically, if you go to marketing or sales, there's a user named Sophie. So Philip needs to be able to reset Sophie's password. So we will test this theory out. Basically, we will right click and click on reset password. We fill in passwords and click on OK. Now, if this didn't work, what you're going to do, you're going to use PowerShell. So sometimes just the user logs in and they cannot see this interface. So basically, they can still reset the user's password using PowerShell. Once you give them the privileges or the delegation to manage this organizational unit through resetting users' passwords, they will be able to do so using PowerShell. So we will use commands from PowerShell to achieve this purpose. So Mina Let's see. Here we have THM Philip as the username. The server is the IP address. Password, Philip password is this. I'm going to name this as Philip. Save and connect. Okay, so as you can see, we logged into Philip account. Now, Philip's workstation is a regular Windows workstation, but has joined to thm.local domain. So we're not going to be able to go to Active Directory. It doesn't have Active Directory. So the only way to do that is to reset the password is by using PowerShell. So we paste in the command. As you can see, guys, this the command is used to reset the password of a user in that's part of Active Directory. So set AD account password, and once you enter, it's gonna prompt you for the what happened, man. Don't start. Okay, new password. Now what we're going to do, we're going to choose the same password here, clear. But instead we're gonna put 2009. We don't want to wrangle with the policies now exist in the Active Directory. We're just gonna put any password. And now the password has been reset. Next, you want to force the user to reset the password. So what you want to do, you want to execute another PowerShell command that will force Sophie to reset her password. So this password is temporary password. Sophie will use this password to log in because she lost access, or she might forget the password. After she logs in with this password, Active Directory or the computer will ask her to change her password if we execute this command. But I'm not gonna execute this command because obviously it didn't work with me. In this room, I wasn't able to log into Sophie despite resetting the password. So I'm going to be satisfied with this command, and now I'm gonna try to log into Sophie's account. So again, with the attacker box, new connection, and from here we say it is Sophie. So the username, and the password is this one. Save and connect. We might need it later. As you can see now, select a user to disconnect so that we can sign in. We don't need Philip anymore. We're gonna select Philip and sign him out. Okay, I'm going to move on to another aspect while this logs in to avoid wasting time. Oh, it logs in. Okay, so as you can see, we logged into Sophie, guys, and this is the flag that you will retrieve from her desktop. The process of granting privileges to a user over some OU or other AD object is called delegation. We explained that. Okay. Let's leave this running. We might need it. And now get back here. Alright, now we explained about the OUs, the users in the OUs, how to create users, or how to join users that into the EU OUs. We explained also how to perform delegation. Now let's talk about computers. So what are these computers? As you can see, guys, these are computers that are part of the domain. They are called maybe workstations. And here we have one workstation. It's not workstation. Everything that's part of domain controller is called servers. So basically, if you want to organize these computers and workstations or servers more granularly, what you're going to do, you're going to add them into organizational units. Maybe divide them into workstations and servers. So let's create a new organizational unit under thm.local and name it as OU here. Select an OU. Yeah. So we name it as servers. And another OU. Name it as workstations. Okay, now what we want to do, we want to decide which one of these computers go into servers and which are the other ones that will go under workstations. As you can see, these appear to be regular workstations. They are not servers. So we're going to move them to workstations. How do we do that? We have two methods. The first one is to drag this, the easiest one, into workstations. Moving objects in Active Directory domains can prevent your existing system from working as it was assigned to. Yeah. So we move them to workstations, as you can see. Or we can right-click properties, and we can see the details about this computer, such as you can see, these are general information. The operating system here, it's member of. Now this, as you can see, it's member of the domain computers. I can add here, and for example, say work stations. It has to be security group. So basically, when you want to add this to another object, it has to be a security group. So so it doesn't have, it cannot be organization unit. So the only way is to drag it like this. This is a workstations. It's also a workstation. PC Daniel, Mark. These appear to be servers by the name. Server DB01, DB02, Web01. So we're gonna have to drag them into servers. Now this way, guys, as you can see, if you go to servers, we have 3 servers. If you go to workstation, we have these workstations. And why are we doing this? Again, we organize objects into Active Directory, whether the objects are users or computers, to be able to assign the policies later. So group policy, as you can see here, is used to assign policies, to be able to properly govern the data contained or stored in these computers, and to properly manage the operating systems and the usage of these operating systems by the users. Questions. After organizing the available computers, how many ended up in the workstation OU? There are 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is it recommended to create separate OUs for servers and workstations? Yes, totally. It's recommended. Alright, now after we have grasped an idea about how Active Directory works, now it's time to, by the way, we didn't cover how to add users to groups. So basically, you can also create groups here, guys. So right click on thm.local and click on new group. So what's the difference between a group and organizational unit? That is the question that many people ask. So what's the difference between if I organize the objects into workstations or if I just add them to security groups? So you can do both. So basically, a user who is part of a workstation or sorry, part of an organization or OU. It's very easy to say OU, right? Easier. OU. Part of an OU. OUs are handy for applying policies. Again, using the group policy editors. These policies, or the group policy, we need organization unit to apply these policies. On the other hand, groups or security groups, they can be used to manage the permissions or to grant permissions over resources. So if you want to organize users according to their permissions over the resources, you will want to use groups. Okay. If you want to apply group policy editors, group policies through the GPOs, you will want to assign them into organizational units. So you can do both. You can assign a user to be part of a group, and then that user can also be part of an OU. Okay, so that is the difference. Alright, now let's go to the group policy editor and give an intro about this. As you can see here, we see the main domain, THM.local. That's the first thing you see when you open the group policy editor. So what you do here, guys, how to create group policies or how to create objects. Basically, you will create them under group policy objects. By default, we have 3 policies, as you can see here. Now, after you add the policies, you will want to link them to either the entire domain or to only an organizational unit. So when you add a policy like this, so you drag it like that, and you select, as you can see, the domain, or you drag it like that this way, and you select an OU. So what's going to happen if you apply the policy to the whole domain, to all the domain, as you can see here? That's such as in this case. RTP policy, as you can see, it is linked to THM.local over all the domain. What does that mean? It means it will be applied and implemented over all the resources, groups, users, computers, any kind of resource. But if you drag it or link it to only or to apply to an OU, it's going to affect only the users or the computers that are part of this OU. That is the difference. Alright, so here, as you can see, we have details about the policy, the location where it is applied, and security filtering. By default, it is authenticated users. And it's worth mentioning, guys, that group policies or group policies are distributed to the network via a network share called the sys volume, as you will see later when we answer the questions. Now here, as you can see, you can also apply security filtering to GPOs so that they are only applied to specific users and computers. So it's true that this policy here, RTP policy, is applied to the full domain, but we have security filtering in place that makes this policy applies only to a section of the resources in the domain, only the authenticated users. So GPOs can use security filtering to be applied to specific users or computers under the OU. Now, this is by default authenticated users. It covers all users because all the users who are part of the domain are authenticated users by default. Now, the settings tab here includes the actual contents of the GPO. Okay, what are the rules? What are the configurations of the GPO? It lets you know, guys. It lets you know what specific configurations that this GPO applies to the resources. Now, if you want to edit an existing policy, all you have to do is to go to the policy itself and just right click and go to edit. Say we want to change the default password policy. What we want to do, we want to edit the respective group policy from here and then go to decide whether it is computer or user configuration. So we want this to be applied to computers. So we choose computer configuration. So we go to computer configuration and then policies, Windows settings. And then we select account policies, security settings, and then account policies, password policy. And here minimum password length. We're gonna make this 10 characters. Not 0, 10. Okay, apply. Now all the computers that are part of the domain, they should have passwords, or each one of them should have password composed of at least 10 characters. Now sometimes, don't do it, man, come on. Okay, now sometimes you will want more explanations about the policy. So what you want to do, you want to go to right click on the policy itself and click on explain. This will give you an intro, guys, to the policy itself. Now, one other popular policy is to restrict access to the configuration or to the control panel. Okay, now if you want to do that, all you have to do, go to user configuration. So in user configuration, we select policies, and then we select administrative templates, control panel, and here we have prohibit access to control panel and PC settings. So we right click or double click, and we can check here if the policy is enabled or not. So we check on enabled. Also, you can read the description of the policy itself. Apply, and I click on OK. Another policy is to implement screen locking for workstations and computers. So after a certain time or certain number of seconds, the computer will go into sleep mode and lock the user out. This will prevent the computer staying open in case the user was not working or was doing something else. You can also do that using computer configuration. So we go to computer configuration and select Windows settings, policies, Windows settings, and from here we will have to go to, again, security settings, scrolling down, local policies, and then we have security options. Here we will look for interactive logon. So you have the interactive logon policies. We want maximize or machine inactivity limit properties, and here we are required to make it 300 seconds. So after 300 seconds, the computer will log out. Questions. What's the name of the network share used to distribute GPOs to domain machines? It's this volume. Can a GPO be used to apply settings to users and computers? Yes, we saw that we can apply a group policy into both users and computers. Authentication methods, there's nothing to do here, just answer the questions. Will a current version of Windows use NTLM as the preferred authentication protocol by default? No, because it's an old authentication method, and now all patched and updated version of Windows, they use Kerberos. Now there was one video I covered, guys, maybe I cannot literally or exactly remember the name, but we covered a scenario where we were able to sniff the credentials over an SMB share because it uses net NTLM. So it's not a recommended way to use it as an authentication method. That's why you have to make sure that your Windows version is up to date. When referring to Kerberos, what type of ticket allows us to request further tickets? Known as TGS, it's ticket granting ticket. When using net NTLM. Is a user's password transmitted over the network at any point? No. Okay, let's now talk about forests. So briefly, guys, if you have two domains or subdomains, as you can see in this scenario, thn.local has expanded, and now they contain, or they opened another office, say in the UK, and now the UK office needs to be managed separately. Okay, it's best practice if you create, in that case, two subdomains, as you can see here, each having their own resources, users, computers, and servers, and each having their own domain controllers. That's the recommended practice. So when we have a structure like this, we call it tree. Okay, two domain controllers, two domains, we have it tree. Now when it becomes a forest, when we have, this one applies if you have the same company but different branches. Now here, if you have different organizations but somehow they were merged, this is organization thn.local and this is organization mht.local, and now they are completely different organizations, right? So you want to do the configurations or perform the configuration so that they are completely different organizations. Say if thn.local has acquired or merged with mht.local and now mht is part of thm, you will still want to keep the resources here separate from the resources of thm. But if you want to be able to grant some privileges to some users to manage aspects between both, you will want to create something called trust relationships. So in trust relationships, a user or administrator from thn.local will be able to have some privileges to manage resources under one of these domains. That's the trust relationship. What's a group of Windows domains that share the same namespace? Called. It is a tree. What should be configured between two domains for a user in a domain A to access a resource in domain B? We said this trust relationship, especially if these domains were not part of the same space. So here they are part of the same namespace, but here us.thn.local is not a part of the same namespace of the here. Here it is mht3 and this is thm3, completely different namespaces. Okay, so that's it, guys. Active Directory basics.